woodwork after she announced she had brownies. It's going to be tough. I'm going to have to hold a mic, drink coffee. No. It works if I talk like this, it seems to work. Did I pay the bill? Yeah, really. But if I talk like this, it doesn't seem to work. Better? See, it came back. Awesome. So, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Don't do that. Please don't do that. I was setting you up. Like I can get past a microphone malfunction through Christ who strengthens me, right? Yeah. Okay, some of y'all aren't learning this lesson. Some of y'all are still going, amen. Preach it, brother. Now, when we get there, I'll tell you why I probably shouldn't have said something. We've been asking we don't really do series, but we're in the middle of a series. We find ourselves in the middle of a series. Last week, I jumped forward. I shouldn't have given you last week's sermon, probably until this week, but I really felt we should have it last week. But last week was divisive. We'll use divisive. That's a good word. I don't think all of you believe it, or if you believe it, you just decided, nah. Because I did tell you had an option. What we've been asking over the past couple of weeks is, what do you do when there's nothing you can do? What do you do when you find yourself at a point in your life where you have to just go, it is what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to have to, I guess I'm just going to deal with it. And you kind of get that attitude, but in the back of your mind, you're still doing things like, come on, God, really? I mean, you left me here? I mean, this is where we're at. Come on, God, I mean, look at what I've done. How much more do I need to do? You remember we talked first week about you bargaining with God and trying to get over the hump, come on, God, help me out here. I mean, been with you a long time. Or you decide you could run, or you decide to get drunk, you decide to get high, whatever, to try to fix that problem. What you realize is when you do those things, it just creates another set of problems that then you go back to pray to God about, and you're like, come on, God, why'd you let me do that? Or you find yourself in jail because you were not doing something you were supposed to do, and then you find yourself, God, can you get me out of jail? Or whatever. And that's just kind of what we've been talking about, those seasons in life. And you could be in one. You may have just got out of one. If you're not one of those two, hold on, because you're going to get ready to get into one. It just kind of happens. It could be financially. You're like, I'm just not where I thought I'd be. Academically, I didn't get as much education I thought I should, or I just can't get into whatever school I thought I would get into. For some of you, go back to school, and you're like, man, I just thought I could get more, and I just can't. Tried and can't. So that's what we're kind of talking about. And then we get jealous, which is really bad, because people are doing the life that we thought we should live. And then what's really, really bad, see, it gets bad, worse. It just keeps going. You got Facebook. And then you get the highlight reels of everybody else's life, and you're like, well, can't I be like them? Because you notice, most people only post statuses that are good. Cool. I only post pictures from the beach, and that's in effort to make people jealous up north. I know why I'm doing it, okay? But typically, you're reading about your friends' lives, and it's all about, my kid got first place in the third grade, whatever thing, or lead in the pageant, and you're reading that, and you're like, oh, their life is awesome. But they're not posting about all the bad stuff. They're not sitting around the house when they're arguing with their husband, oh, they're going to kill him, that kind of stuff. They don't do that. Some of you do. Okay, I understand. But, so it creates this jealousy in our life, and we start looking at everybody else, and we're like, they can do it, I can do it. Or why did you give God, why'd you give them a good life, but not me a good life? I don't have good stuff to post about, whatever. And at some point, we finally just give up and say, you know what, God, this is pretty much all your fault. And I've even heard some people say, well, if I hadn't trusted God, I wouldn't be in this position. Yeah. To which last week we said you have the option to actually look at your position as a gift from God. The problem you have can actually be looked at as a gift. Now, I say option because many of you decided, I don't think I like that option. I think I'm just going to keep praying my way out of it. I feel better about that. And that's okay. That's your option. You've got to kind of come to that conclusion on your own. But at the emotional level, that's kind of where we come to. And we end up with these thoughts right here. I'm never going to be happy again. Nothing good can come from this. There's no point in continuing. Now, the last one, no point in continuing, some people extrapolate that really far into their life, like I'm done living. But many times there's no point in continuing this path I'm on. There's no point in trusting anymore. There's no point in praying anymore. There's no point in following anymore, because when I follow, I just end up like I am right now. And so that's kind of where we get to, and we get really plateaued. We get really complacent. We stop following God as much. We're Christian. I'm going to church. I'm just going to sit back here in the back. Sorry if you're on the back. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm going to come late. Sorry if you came late. But I'm just going to be there. I heard a couple have told me over the years, you know what? I'm going to have to stop. I'm just going to have to stop serving as much. I'm going to have to back up. I need to really work on me. I just feel, because I've been doing all this good for God, some other things are starting to fall apart. And I'm just going to have to turn back and refocus on that. And, after I pat him on the head, I laugh at him after I walk away. So don't ever tell me that. But we said adversity is not God being absent or apathetic or angry. He's none of those things. Just because you're going through something doesn't mean God left you, doesn't mean God forgot about you, and doesn't mean that God is mad at you or he's left you. And when we talked about that that option of being able to look at things that as a gift from God, we can understand that your adversity can be looked at as a situation with a purpose and a promise. And you might not understand the purpose right now, but the promise is, Paul told us, my grace is sufficient for you. That's your promise in everything, no matter where you find yourself. My grace is sufficient. If you'll just back up and look at that, you might not see the purpose right now, but you'll at least be able to understand that I'm there with you, and that my grace that I give you is enough. It is enough. You and I take this conflict, things are going wrong, and we look at it as a bad thing. I think it's because we're spoiled. And I'm not saying spoiled is always bad. I like being spoiled, right? But in our Western culture, just as a culture, we really are spoiled. Things go bad, and it's obviously God punishing us when things go bad. And it's just a horrible outlook to have on life that I don't think you can find in the Bible. You're not going to find God punishing our nation because somebody's doing something wrong. We don't have that anymore. We have you walking with Christ individually in the midst of a country who is lost, on a planet that is lost. And God's desire is that they all know Him. But for that to happen, you've got to get to the point where His grace is enough for you. And you stop asking for other things to make you happy. His grace is enough. Last week we looked at Paul, who had a humiliating, debilitating, painful, and permanent thing that he asked God 3 times to take away, which you can identify with. But on that 3rd time, God finally said, nope, not doing it. And Paul had to realize it's here forever. I'm going to stop asking Him to remove it, and I'm now going to look at it as this gift. I'm going to now rejoice in it. I'm actually going to take my problem, and I'm going to put it in front, and so that everybody knows, hey, that's my problem. So that when people walk up to you and go, you know what your problem is? You can go, yeah, I just showed you. You don't understand how offensive people can't be anymore when they ask you, do you know what your problem is? And you go, yeah, I own it. I'm good with it. Yeah, they got nothing else to talk about. So you didn't just keep going. So then Paul he goes a step further. And now he's going to tell us about this idea of being, or this concept of being content. And I want to look at this concept in a little different light than probably you used to. And we're going to use a verse that you probably didn't ever use to being content, even though it's in there. And he actually says it, that Paul is content. And what he's going to tell you is that the contentment is the ability to be at peace on the inside, even though stuff on the outside is going haywire. He's not going to tell you that your situation changes for you to get peace. And I think that's what you and I are constantly looking for. Something's going wrong in our life. We're not going to have peace until it's fixed. What Paul says is, no, you have peace inside no matter what, even though the circumstances don't change. And that's very different than the rest of the world. Your life is supposed to be revolved around this Christ, this being that lives inside of you. Paul's going to tell us it's a mystery. It's a secret. I don't really get it. But you're supposed to be able to put it into practice. Even though everything around you seems to be falling apart, you should be able to find peace. See, Paul, initially the Christian hater. If you're here today and you don't really like Christians because you think some of them should be in jail, Paul's your best friend because he put a lot of them in jail. He grew up that way. He came up that way. He just hated Christians. And then he became one. And he launched this incredible missionary endeavor that he was going to go out, and now he's going to go save the world. And that's what he was out doing. And about 10 years in, this is very important, about 10 years into his missionary post-conversion experience, changing his name from Saul to Paul, about 10 years later, he finds himself just living high on the hog, right? Spreading the gospel, having a good time, driving a Bentley. Yeah. Got a gold roof sitting outside Jerusalem. Got a couple of wait staff, a butler, security team. They all drive Suburbans. I mean, he's got it all, right? Don't you know? Isn't that where he's at? How many of y'all know your Bible? Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay. That's not where Paul's at. 10 years later, Paul's in jail. He's sitting in a Roman prison. Basically, house arrest. But back then, that was like our jail. And he finds himself sitting there in what we have been calling in the past couple of weeks a meantime moment. And, you can either take or leave Paul. Paul, there's no really middle of the road. You either really love him or you really don't like him. And it's harder for women to like him because he comes off as a male chauvinist pig, a real male-dominant type of guy. Totally understand that from where you're coming from. You need to read a little deeper and understand where he's coming from, but I understand. But when he's writing here, what you got to find is he's in Rome. Nero's the emperor. If you know anything about Nero, we talked about this in Sunday school, and I gave them a little preview, but I wouldn't go any further. Nero, y'all understand about Nero, what happened to him, or what he really liked doing? He liked picking up Christians on the road or in their houses, and he poured oil on them, and then he put them on a spike in his garden, and he lit them on fire. And they were the modern-day tiki torch. And he did it for years. I mean, it was kind of like he didn't care. When that one burned out, he'd go get another one. I mean, he'd just pick them off. This is where Paul's at. This is the guy that Paul's going to answer to. That he's now in prison in the same town with. Meantime, I'm sure Paul had to look at his life and say, well, what am I going to do? Because it had to look like game over. It had to look like Nero wins, Jesus loses. Rome wins, Christianity loses. Finally, it's over. I mean, Paul was supposed to be the one to bring the gospel to Rome. And he did. But to the world, it had to look like, finally, that's done. To Rome, I'm sure they looked at it and said, we got him. That's over. That's cool. Now, we'll just let him rot there. We don't want a big uprising over his lovers. Let's just leave him in jail. And that's what they did. They left him there for quite a while. But Paul is very ambitious. He's not whatever. See, I'm not saying that's the kind of attitude you got to have. It's not oh, well, bad news. It's okay. Paul took this situation, and in this meantime moment, he says, you know what? What do I got? I can write a letter. I think I'll write some letters. So he sits down, and that's what he begins to do. I mean, he finds himself with nowhere to go, nothing to do. And so he starts to write them. Little did he know that these little pieces of those writings that he's going to do would become the most historical pieces of literature in all of history. They would be the most widely read pieces in all of history. I mean, in his mind, I'm stuck. I'll make the best of it. I'll write these letters, and I'll send it to these Christians where I've set up some churches already. I'll just communicate with them. We know that in jail he wrote the prison epistles. They're called Philippians, Ephesians, Colossians, and Philemon. He wrote those letters while here, while sitting there. That's who he's writing to the people in Ephesus, to the people in Philippi, to the people in Colossus, to the people in, well, to Philemon himself. Hello! It's probably mine. That wasn't mine, was it? Now, in his mind, this is all I can do. I'll write back to these people. I'll communicate. I'll do what I can do. But in reality, he's changing the Western world. I mean, what he's doing, what he's writing would eventually be part of undermining the entire Roman Empire. A letter. He wrote a letter to the church in Philippi, to some Christians. He wrote a letter. He wrote a letter to some people in Ephesus. He wrote a letter. How many of you all have letters that were written by people in your life? I mean, some of you women, I know you do. I'm talking to the guys. Okay, good. It's the only way it kind of sticks through. But he wrote a letter. I mean, I could argue that Paul, after Jesus, had more influence on the entire world than anyone, right up until the printing press in 1450. And do you know what Gutenheimer first printed on the first printing press? Say it out loud. The Bible. These letters, which had then been copied, but Paul wrote one. That's incredible. Why am I the only one that thinks this is incredible? Okay, let me see if I can amp up incredible a little bit. While he was in prison, he wrote the letter to Ephesus, and in that letter, he said, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Be ready to die. Lay your lives down for your wives. Ladies, how excited are you that Paul got put in jail? Right? Had he not been put in jail, he may not have wrote that letter. It's pretty cool. Here's the point. Paul didn't know what hung in the balance when he made a decision to stay faithful when it would have been easier to stay faithless. He didn't know what hung in the balance. What hung in the balance? Us. We hung in the balance. Because of Paul staying faithful in prison to simply write a letter, you are where you are. You know what you know. I hung in the balance. One more thing, and then we'll actually get started with the sermon. What's the odds? What's the odds that this letter, these letters, 4 of them, survived even the first century? I mean, what's the odds? We know that all through history, these Roman emperors, Nero, especially Nero, they took what he wrote down and they locked it in vaults after they made multiple copies of it. And we still lost them. But a letter that a prisoner wrote has made it into history as some of the most widely read and transcribed and translated and published and copied pieces in all of history. I think you should pay more attention to the words on the page. And I think you should do more of what it says. Agreed? All right, then hold on. And let's look at what it says you should do today and see if you really believe it. Because here's the big deal. You have no idea what hangs in the balance when you decide to continue to follow Christ even though adversity has hit your life. You have no idea what's going on. And I know you're sitting out there, well, don't tell me that God works everything together for good, because if I stood up there and told them my problem, they'd go, ooh, that's bad. Well, you know what? It's true. It's on the paper. But how do you make it happen? How do you understand it? How do you get through it? That's what we're going to learn. Because what we learn is in the midst of adversity, God does his most amazing work through us. That's when it happens. Let's look at one of those letters, the one he wrote to Philippi. We're going to jump over to chapter 4 of this letter. He didn't really write it in chapters. That's just for us. He wrote one big letter, okay? But we're going to look in your books under chapter 4. We're going to start at verse 10. Right at the beginning of it, he says, did I give you verse 10? Really? No, we're going to start at 10. Can you make it start at 10? Inez, read 10. There it is, got it. I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Hold on, I'll tell you what that means. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. Kind of a weird set of phrases. But here's what's happening. He didn't get the text. Philippi didn't get the Facebook status. In jail. Period. Sad-faced, whatever emoticon you want to throw on there. Wouldn't it be cool if he had an emoticon that was looked like this behind bars? He didn't have that. So news traveled really slow. Remember, he's in Rome. He's in jail. He's in Nero's prison. He's the one that's kind of sat around, and they finally get word in Philippi that Paul's been transferred to the Roman jail. So they send him a care package. If you read all of chapter 4, you'll see it. They send him a box. They send him an iPod, some thumb drives, some Starburst. I don't know what's in the box. Who cares? I just know they sent him something. He gets it. He opens it up, and he goes, wow, they didn't forget about me. That's cool. And since it's this far into the letter, I believe he was already writing the letter to him when he gets the box. That's really not part of the story. It doesn't matter. So you've renewed your concern. You were able to, now that you know that I'm in jail, you were able to show me again that you were concerned. And I'm thankful for it. He'll tell you about that later. Then he uses this as a launching point to explain this big idea, contentment. Okay? He gets a care package, a present in the mail, and he uses it to teach. See, I don't know what this letter would have ended if he hadn't received the box. I'm kind of thankful he got the box. Here's why. Let's look at the first part of 11. I'm not saying this because I am in need. I'm not saying about the box because I'm in need, because I got some things. I'm not saying because I'm fearful of what's going to happen. I'm not saying it because I was sitting here worried, if I don't hurry up and get this XYZ, whatever's going to be in the box, if I don't get it, then I'm in trouble. It's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying here because, he then says because, rest of 11 says, it says because. No, that's 12. That's not the rest of 11. For I've learned. You need to underline that. I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. Now, if you're reading that, at this point, if you're smart people, or as Paul said in chapter 3, if you're mature, you'll lean in, you'll go, I would like to learn that. Right? I mean, wouldn't you like to learn it? I mean, if there's a class teaching contentment, wouldn't you like to be the first to sign up? Yes or no? Okay, remember we just talked about how important the black and white stuff is on the little papyrus? This is part of it. Paul says, I have learned. It's not natural. Nobody's going to pop out of mama going, I'm content. You're going to pop out and you're going to be different than this, which means you're going to be discontented. You're only going to be known by discontentment. Paul says, I've learned how to be content. And then basically saying, whether or not you take the class, it's available. I've done it. I can show you, he would say. Because he would expect you to go, okay, what is it? I'd like to know. See, he's not, oh well, whatever, content. But it's just content. I mean, wouldn't you like to know what it was? Yeah, me too. Tough. He says, in spite of my circumstances, I've learned to be content. The other part of that, now we can go to 12. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. So he's saying, I know what it is. I didn't let the fact that I have plenty mess up my contentment, and I'm not letting the fact that I don't have what I think I need to mess up my contentment. I've been both places. We talked about this morning. I think he was in both places in prison, and he's been both places in his life. He's had it all. He's been numero uno. Okay, he's been the cat's meow. And he's also been the snake's belly. So he's been both places. If you read all of chapter 4, you understand he's needed stuff while he was in jail. Toothpaste, deodorant, whatever. He's needed those things. And then he's had all those things. And what he says is, no matter my circumstance, no matter what it is, I have been able to be content. Now, don't clue in on his stuff. Okay, I'm using that as an example so you kind of get his mindset. But he's not talking about his stuff at all. Not talking about of what he has. On in chapter 4, he kind of throws that back in, but he uses spiritual and physical together. He marries them. And it's really cool in the literature version of it, but it kind of messes you up if you don't center in on the fact that he uses both phrases. He's not just talking about the stuff that he's getting, okay? In spite, I've learned to be content. I've learned to navigate having a lot and not having enough. Then the last part, 12, says, I have learned the secret of being content. See, there it is. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or what. Okay, so I've learned the secret. Now, right there, learn the secret of being content. Put that in parentheses if you're writing. If you're using digital, highlight it. If you're using YouVersion, you have the option to highlight. Learn the secret of being content. What Paul just did in that sentence is very important because you do it a lot. Anybody have those toilet paper rolls that teaches you a new word every day? Have you seen them? Oh, you need to get them. They're cool. Have you ever been with somebody who you think or you're pretty sure they got a new word off the toilet paper roll? They'll say a word and you're like, what did you just say? I mean, you typically use 2 and 3 syllables, and that was all the way up in the 5 syllables. Where did you learn that word? You ever say it to your kids? Like, when my kids say something, I'm like, when did you get smart? Right? It's just like that. That word right there, have learned the secret of being content, is actually one word in the Greek, and it is never, ever used in Scripture except for right there, one time. And in his day and age was never used in any religious or spiritual circles at all. It was actually used in mystic cultism or cultic mysticism. Say it that way. Paul uses that word so that people read it will go, wait a minute. Why'd you use that word? It makes people pay attention. So it would have made the church in Philippi go, oh, what's he talking about? That's pretty weird. That he's learned that. For you and I, it would be like, if anybody would join a fraternity, and you do rush, and then that magical night when they teach you the little, whatever it is, and that's the secret, not supposed to tell nobody else. That's what he's talking about, right then. The phrase, that's how we learn it. I've learned the secret of being content. Here's what it actually means if you literally pull out the definition of the word. I gotta find it. I have been initiated into the cult of contentment. That's what it literally says. I have been initiated into the cult of contentment. It's secret. It's a mystery. It's not widely known. You're going to have, if you want it, you can have it, but you're going to have to learn it. So people are now going to get closer. Come on. Okay. Enough with the what is the secret, or enough that it is a secret. Tell me what it is. Because they're looking at his life going, no, you've had it bad. I mean, you were beaten. You were thrown over a wall. And those were your good days. And now you're arrested. And now you're telling me you've been initiated into the secret cult of contentment. I think it would behoove me, there's my $10 word for today. It would behoove me to figure out what the secret is. Can you tell me the secret, Paul? So he tells us in the next verse, which is second famous only to John 3:16. The very next verse in the Bible. There it is right there. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And isn't that awesome for you to have on your bumper sticker? Isn't that awesome for you to, don't say amen. Not yet. Not yet. You can say it in a minute. Not yet. Isn't it awesome for you to put on your mirror? Isn't it awesome to put in your car? Or to say right before you go into court to pay your speeding ticket? Isn't it awesome to use right there? I mean, it is. I mean, you've heard this applied in all sorts of situations. Might I add, completely wrongly. This is one of the most overused, out of context verses we have. We put this on everything. I heard someone use it when they were on a diet. I can do all things through Christ. I don't have to eat that Twinkie. I can live without that Twinkie because of the strength of Christ in me. You laugh. But you do it too. There are some things that are just kind of like they're out there, and you grab this verse because, well, John 3:16 really doesn't fit because you're already saved. So now you got to have this one. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And so many times it's just really stupid stuff. I mean, it really is. I mean, for me, it would have been as silly as my microphone was broken. I can do this through Christ who strengthens me. I can still preach today, even though my microphone's not working, because of Christ's strength. Now I am picking a little bit. I am critical a little bit. Not in every situation. Okay, you're going to be able to use this. Don't forget the verse. You get it back. Okay, I'm not taking it away forever. Okay, you still we didn't rip it out of the Bible. Paul actually said it. He wanted it here. But in this context, Paul's chaotic and literally life-threatening situation, Paul says, I can do all this. All of that stuff, this whole thing that's got me to right where I'm at, I can do this all through him who gives me. And I'm going to add a word, which I know if you're a purist in Revelation, it says, I'm going to die. I'll get permission when I get up there. I can do all this through him who gives me his strength. I think you ought to have that word there. Okay? Some of you, if you've got a later manuscript, which would be the King James, it probably says, I can do all this through Christ. Right, yeah. And after people started copying this stuff, they thought people were dumb, and they didn't know what him meant, so they added Christ. So it's okay. Through him, through Christ, who gives me his strength. Because Paul will elaborate for the rest of his life that it's always been Christ in him. It's never really been him. So we know we know that it fits there. So I'm okay, and I don't think that God's going to send me to hell. His strength, literally. To be clear, he was not talking about this. This was put up over a football field. And the home team was about to run through that. Cute, still works. But can you think about Paul up in heaven? Really? A football game? That's what you're asked. That's the strength of Christ you're talking about? Really? I was in jail. I was eating my own bugs. I'd pick them off of me, and that'd be my protein for a day. And your quarterback's going to rush for the most yards in his career, and that's what you're going to apply Christ's strength to? I don't think so. You got to think that Paul's up there going, missed it a little bit, missed it. I mean, we're talking about some pretty deep stuff here. Paul would actually, this isn't Rocky. This is not people cheering you on in life. Yay. This is not you graduating with a 4.0. I can do all this through Christ. No, you can do all this through studying. We're talking about stuff that is a mystery that you don't understand. We're talking about you looking at this adversity that's in your life, this whatever it is that you don't think you'll ever get out of. This is applying, I can do all this through Christ who gives me his strength. I do not think Christ is going to come through you and play a better game of ball. Here's why. How many people are on the field? How many people? 22 total? So there's 44, right? Playing? Is there? No, how many people play at one time? Thank you. I don't play football. Thanks, Captain Obvious. That's where you would say. There's 22 people on the field, okay? Let's pretend that all 22 are Christians. This was actually at a Christian high school. Let's pretend all 22 are Christians. They're all standing out there looking at each other, wanting to rip each other's head off, right? Through Christ who gives me strength. Which Christ wins? Which Christ wins? Because if that's the case, 11 people are going to walk out the field and go, Christ don't love me. I must not have enough Christ strength. You see how crazy that is? You put it on your running uniform and you're going to run somewhere, and what if you lose? Christ don't have enough strength for me to win. That's why I know this is so much deeper, and I know we've misapplied it. And I know that Paul was talking about stuff in life. He could actually live through prison. I can do this. I can do this. And he wasn't even talking about prison life. I can do this, what God has called me. If you read the entire chapter, I can do what Christ has called me to do through the fact that he's the one giving me strength to do it. I can get up and march through my day doing what God has called me to do because it's his strength that's causing me to do it. Does that make sense? I don't know. You see, because if you rip this verse out of context, you miss the secret of contentment. And that's what Paul is saying. You miss being initiated into the secret life of being content in Christ. What can Paul do with this strength that Christ provides him? He can be content in all things, regardless of what's going on around him. If Paul could set you down, he would go, here's a secret. If you take Christ's strength and you understand that you can live with it inside of you and let him live out of you, you can do everything. And you can understand that you can be content in everything. It's a mystery. That's why Paul used that little secret phrase. I've been initiated into the cult. It's a mystery. Does Paul even understand what that means? Probably not. Probably not. So here's a summary. I can't. He can. He can through you or me. I can't. He can. He can through me. I'm not going to be able to make it. You're right. But he can. I'm not going to be able to survive this. You're right. You can't. But he can. And he can through you. My relationship with my spouse is not as good as it ought to be. I wish it was different. I can't survive like this. You're right, you can't. But he can. And he can through you. If I don't get some financial stability, I'm not going to be able to make it through this year. You're right, you can't. But he can. And he can through you. Because if you were like Paul, you'd be sitting there and you'd be saying, I cannot live in jail. Anybody ever watch a show when somebody gets put in jail and you just like, you lose it? You're like, oh my God. If that were me, kill me. I'm serious. I would make it almost 30 minutes in jail. Just about 30 minutes. Paul would be saying, I can't. But he can. And he can through me. That's the secret of being content. That's the mystery. It's not just giving you strength to do stuff on the planet. It's not just a pithy little thing you throw out there that can become your favorite verse. Listen, if that's your favorite verse, this better give you some new meaning. If that's your favorite verse, you're now telling the entire world, I'm content in everything I do, and you won't find me whining and crying about my situation. You will find me with a happy smile on my face. I may not like it, but I'm going to have a joy and a peace that I don't even understand. And it's all because I can do it through this power that Christ gives me. And I don't even understand how it got there, and I don't understand how it's getting out. It's a secret. But I can do it because he can do it through me. So you want to own that verse, own it. But make sure the rest of the world is going, how are you so content with your life? I mean, be ready when somebody walks up to you and go, you know what, your life sucks even more than mine. How are you so happy with it? I can do all this because of Christ's strength that's in me. That's how. Proper use of the verse. Excellent A. You passed the test. Here's your assignment. Don't you want assignments in your church? Oh, wait a minute. I know. You know why I know he can? I mean, do you believe he can? Okay, yeah, right. Okay, why? I'm going to give you one reason why I know Jesus can. He drug his own cross up a hill and died on it for your sin. And that's how I know he can. Because if there was ever anybody in the world who wanted to get out of an adversity type situation that was life-threatening, that actually had the power to do it, it would have been Christ. Not even Paul. But Paul reminds us, I can't. He can. And he did. And he can do it through me. So here's your assignment. Before you ever get up, here's what I want you to say. God, I can't. You can. That's it. Now, I mean, you can say whatever else you want to after that from an assignment purpose. God, I can't, but you can. Before you hit the floor, I mean, if you're if you're up early and late, you might have to whisper it. God, I can't even talk loud, but you can. God, I can't, but I know you can. It's the mystery of Christ through you. Will you be able to explain it? Nope. Probably not. That's why it's a mystery. God, I can't, but you can. Then one more. At night, okay? Here's your prayer for the nighttime. Because nighttime, things change a little bit. You ever notice your perspective at night is different than your perspective in the morning? It just is. Here's your prayer for it. So in the morning, God, I can't, you can. Tonight, or at night, here's your lesson. Teach me the mystery of Christ in me. Not explain to me, okay? Teach me, okay, the mystery of Christ in me. I want to have Christ in me. I understand it's a mystery. Now I'm asking you to teach me. And if you really didn't pay a lot of attention, you might go, and I don't know what he was talking about being in a cult and all that stuff, but whatever. Teach me the mystery of Christ in me. And then every morning, God, I can't, but you can. I want to learn the secret of being content. I want to learn that secret. Stand with me and let's go. Tonight, we have a very special opportunity as a church family to come and love on another family who's lost a 35-year-old son. 30? Just 30? Ooh, a 30-year-old son. One of our members, Ollie, her son, passed away about a week and a half ago. We're going to have his memorial service in here. There's going to be a lot of people in this room. A lot of people who don't know who God is and actually don't trust you at all. Okay? They're not even going to understand why you would come, which is why it's important you would come. There will be some ex-drug dealers. There will be some current drug dealers. I don't say that so you can get inventory. I say that so that you can understand the type of people who are coming to a memorial service and looking for peace in an adverse situation that they don't understand. And they're looking at you to understand why you would even come because you don't even know him. It's that Christ in you coming out. So I'm asking you to all, if you can, come at 4 o'clock. That's the memorial service. Then at 5 o'clock, we're having dinner with them. That's when you really get to kind of rub shoulders and say, what's your name? What do you do for a living? Ooh. Yeah, maybe don't ask it. Well, you can ask it, but just don't have your face go. And then don't ask for their phone number because that sets off all kinds of red flags. Crazy. Okay? But just love on them, you know, and get to, exchange addresses. I don't care. Get to know them. I'm a firm believer, if you live on this island and you don't have 5 drug dealers' phone numbers in your phone that you're not buying from, that you're not making an impact with, okay, that you're not befriending outside of deals, you may not be doing as much as you think you are. Think about that as you go out of here. Think about that when you think, well, I don't need a lot of that drama in my life. Well, whatever drama you've got, handle it. Handle it. So that's what tonight is all about. We've canceled health part because it's that important that we express who Jesus is to a bunch of people who have no idea who he is. Daniel knew who he was. Daniel had that lifestyle. Daniel got out of that lifestyle, and Daniel found Christ. Then he went back into that lifestyle and started pulling people out one at a time. It was so cool. It is so cool. When you meet all of them that Daniel pulled out, that's what's really phenomenal. And today we hope that others who haven't been pulled out yet get pulled out. And if not, we at least plant some seeds. So come at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock for eating. 6 o'clock, we have a missions and coffee meeting. If you're interested in missions and or coffee, tonight's your night. 6 o'clock, still in the retreat center after you eat. We're going to go and have a little meeting together and get really detailed in what this church does with and why about coffee. So come and do that. Then the rest of the stuff that's in the bulletin we want you to be a part of because if you're in town just for a little while, your family. Oh, I forgot to ask, who's on vacation? That's a month or less on Fort Myers Beach. Month or less. Yes, come on, y'all line. Cool. We need you to be here. The white slip in the pew in front of you, you take it back to the coffee shop for a visitor, and then we give you a special, just a quick little fun thing to take home with you to remember where you were today. And then if you live here now and you didn't use to full time, it's the other color card. You fill it out, take it to the coffee shop, and we'll send you a work belt or at least an email of assignments, right? Whatever we can. Absolutely. John needs to see the HR/finance team over in that corner really fast. If y'all can walk over there as soon as we're done, pop in over to see John. A couple of quick notes. Anybody else need an announcement or add on? No? Let's be dismissed and let's get out of here. We got work to do. Ed, pray for us, would you?